Hello everyone, I am Vandana Sharma and today we are going to do a very interesting chapter of class 12th book Flamingo, chapter number 4, that is The Rattrap, written by Selma Olof. Let's read something about our author. Selma Olof was born on the Marbacka estate in Värmland County, Sweden. Her father was a serviceman, and she was trained as a teacher, and she began her career as an author as a side job while working at a school in Landskrona. In 1895 she moved to Falun where she began supporting herself solely on her writing. Selma Ottilia Lovisa Lagerlöf was a Swedish author and teacher. She published her first novel, Gösta Berling's Saga, at the age of 33. She was the first woman to win the prestigious Nobel Prize in Literature, which she was awarded in 1909. Let's read the character list in our story. The most important character of our story is the peddler or the stranger. The protagonist and central character of the story is an unnamed man who lives as a tramp wandering the countryside and selling rat traps, which he makes out of wires in his spare time. Our character or our protagonist has not been given any name in the story. He has been given many titles like the vagabond, the ragamuffin, the tramp, the peddler, the stranger, the guest, but he has not been given a proper name. Our second important character is Edla Williamson. She is the daughter of the Iron Master. She is described as not at all pretty, but modest and quite shy. She is exceptionally kind. Another important character is the Iron Master, who owns Ramsjo Iron Works, and he is Edla Williamson's father. He is described as a very prominent Iron Master, and he stops by to watch the work at his forge every day and night and inspect the quality of the work. Another character is the old man or the crofter who makes the foundation or the basis of the story. An old man who lets the peddler spend the night at his house, and the old man is clearly lonely and glad to have company and provides the peddler with food, tobacco, and conversation also. There are two minor characters in the story also, the master blacksmith and his apprentice. The master blacksmith and his apprentice both work at the forge and they let the peddler to warm himself and sleep by the furnace in the Ramjo iron works. The story begins by showing the poor rat trap seller who used to make his living by selling rat traps made of wires. So his job was to sell rat traps which he used to make of wires in odd hours, and he got the raw material to make rat traps from farms and stores. But as his business of selling rat trap was not profitable, it was difficult for him to make both ends meet. Therefore, he had to resort to petty thievery and begging because he could not make much money by selling rat traps of wires, and therefore he had to resort to petty thievery and begging. His clothes were in rags. In rags means his clothes were torn always, and his cheeks were sunken, means deep inside. Hunger gleamed in his eye. Whenever he looked in his eyes. Hunger was shining in his eyes as he had been hungry for a long time. The vagabond was always lonely. So the most important thing to be noted down here is that he was lonely all. So as the man was always lonely, he had no companion and no family member, no friend to talk to. So he was always lost in his own meditations. One day he had fallen into a line of thought. Suddenly he was struck by the idea that the whole world about him, the whole world with his lands, seas, cities, and villages, it was nothing but a big rat trap. Because he was always thinking of rat traps, therefore he compared the world with a big rat trap. And he thought that it existed only to set baits. Baits is Bait is something that is provided somebody to attract and trap him. So the only purpose was to set baits for the people, and it offered riches, joys, shelter, food, heat, clothing, all exactly as the rat trap offered cheese and pork. And as soon as the human beings let themselves be tempted to touch the bait, the rat trap closed in on them, and then everything came to an end. So this became a cherished pastime of his. This is an important question from the board point of view also, that what was the cherished pastime of the peddler. So his cherished pastime was to think of people he knew who had let themselves be caught in the dangerous snare, in this dangerous rat trap, and of others who were still circling around the bait, who were ready to enter this big rat trap. One dark evening, as he was walking along the road, he caught sight of a little grey cottage by the roadside. The road was lonely, and it was the only cottage that he could see there. And he knocked on the door to ask shelter for the night, and as it was the month of December and the dark was descending. To his surprise, he was welcomed. So now, why was he surprised when he was welcomed inside? Because he was used to of being chased away from everywhere he went to ask for anything. People did not like him, and they always shooed him away. But to his surprise, this time he was welcome inside. The owner of the grey cottage was an old man, and he was happy to have a company as he lived alone. So the poor old man who used to live by the roadside in a little grey cottage, he was a lonely man, and he welcomed his guest inside. The old man gave him supper. Supper means he gave him food, and he shared with him his tobacco roll. And finally, he got out an old pack of cards and played Mullis. Mullis is a game of cards in Sweden with his guest until bedtime. So the old man was very generous. Not only that, he shared his food, his tobacco roll, and played a card game with him, but also he provided his all family secrets to the guest. The man was very generous, and he shared his confidences. Confidences means his personal secrets with the peddler, and along with his supper and tobacco, he provided him all the information. He informed the vagabond that in his days of prosperity, that means when he was young and when he could do hard labor, he used to work as a crofter. A crofter is a man who tills the land and works as a gardener or a farmer. He used to work as a crofter in Ramjo iron mills. But now, as he had grown old and he could not work hard, so he had a cow to support him. And he had earned 30 kronors. Kronor is the currency of Sweden. So he had earned 30 kronors last month by selling the creamery, the milk products of the cows. When he told him that he had earned 30 kronors by selling the milk products of the cow, the only cow, it seemed to the old man that his guest did not believe him. So the old man got up and went to the window and took down a leather pouch which hung on a nail in the very window frame. So this way he was not only telling him the money that he had earned, but also showing him the place where he kept the money, that is in a leather pouch, and the leather pouch he used to hang on a nail in the very window frame. He took the leather pouch and picked out three wrinkled 10 kronor bills. That means he took out three bills of 10 kronors each, that is 30 kronors, and these he held up before the eyes of his guest, nodding knowingly. And nodding knowingly here means that these words show here the fairy tale angle that we read in the beginning of the introduction part of the story in the book. So nodding knowingly means that old man, when he showed him the money, maybe it was a plot by the god himself, because the god thought that the man, the rat trap seller, was always thinking about people who were attracted by the baits and were entrapped in the rat trap. Let's see whether the rat trap seller himself will be trapped or not. So the old man showed him the money and then stuffed them back into the pouch. Next morning, when the crofter and the peddler woke up, they went their own ways, and the peddler, after some time, came back and stole the 30 kronors by smashing the window pane. He was very pleased with his smartness. So after some time, when he came back to the old man's house, the crofter's house, he came there, broke the window pane, smashed it, and stole the money and hung the pouch back on the nail. When he left, he was very pleased with his smartness, that he had very easily stolen the money and nobody came to know of it. But after some time, due to the fear of being caught, he took to the woods. He left the main public highway and he took to the way of the woods. And he got lost as the forest was very huge. After some time, he felt that he was moving in the same part of the forest and he will never get out of it. He felt that he was trapped in the rat trap and will never get out of it. The big forest, with its trees and thickets and logs, seemed like an impenetrable means through which you cannot go. It seemed like an impenetrable prison to him, and it was late in December and getting dark, and with that he had lost all his hope. As in his whole disappointment and despair he lay down on the ground, he heard a sound, a hard, regular thumping sound. Those are the hammer strokes from an iron mill, he thought. There must be people nearby. He gathered all his strength. He got up and staggered in the direction of the sound. Staggered means walked with difficulty. He staggered into the direction from where the hard thumping sound of hammer strokes was coming from. So the Ramjo iron works, which now closed down, were not so long ago a large plant with smelter, rolling mill, and forge. So that those sounds were coming from Ramjo Iron Works, the same place where that old crofter used to work, whom he had taken the shelter from and whose money he had stolen. The master blacksmith, there were two people inside, the master blacksmith and his attendant, that is the apprentice. They were both sitting near the furnace where the tramp entered in the mill and asked the permission to stay. So the tramp entered and asked the permission to stay. So it was very usual for such people to come such rainy nights in the iron mill to ask shelter for. So the blacksmith and his attendant did not even bother to look at this tramp seller, and they gave him permission. The tramp laid himself in the mill and slept with his face covered with a slouch hat. While he was sleeping, the owner of the iron mill, that is, the iron master, came into the forge for his nightly rounds of inspection. And he mistook the identity of the tramp. When he looked at his face, he picked up his hat and looked at his face. He thought that the tramp was his old regimental comrade, that is, Captain Von Stahl. The tramp did not undeceive him at all. It means that the tramp, the rat trap seller, did not tell the iron master that he was not his friend, he was somebody else, that he had mistaken his identity. He did not deny it, and in greed of some more money, he hid his true identity. So the iron master, who mistook the identity of the tramp as his long lost old regimental comrade Captain Von Stahl, invited the tramp to his house. As it was Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve means an evening before the day of the Christmas. And at his house there was nobody, but he had his only daughter in the family, as his wife was dead and his two sons were abroad. But the ragamuffin refused to go with him. But why did he refuse to go with the iron master? Because he was very scared of being caught. He thought that he might be caught. He was greedy also, so he did not deny the identity of his old friend in the greed of a few more kronos. But he was scared also, and he did not want to go to the iron master's house. The ironmaster went away, and after some time his daughter Edla Wilmanson arrived. She came in with a valet, handing him a fur coat for him, and the tramp could not refuse her invitation because she said it in such a friendly manner. When she looked at the tramp compassionately with her heavy eyes, she noticed that the man was afraid. So she noticed the first thing about the man, that he was afraid. Nothing about the man showed her that he was once a captain. She thought that either he has stolen something or he has escaped from jail. she thought, and added quickly, "You may be sure, Captain, that you will be allowed to leave us just as freely as you came." So she said in a very friendly manner to the tramp that he was allowed to leave just as freely as he came. So not only that she spoke friendly with him, but also assured him that he could leave their company as freely as when he wanted to. So she requested him to come over for the Christmas Eve at the festival. He agreed to her invitation and followed the young lady out to the carriage. But while he was riding up to the manor house, to the ironmaster's house, he had all evil forebodings. He was having all negative intuitions. He was thinking that why the devil did I take that fellow's money? Now he was regretting his action, that why did he steal the money of that old man? But even now, when he was being guided by the good angel, that the role is played by Edla Wilson, even then he did not confess to his crime. Even then he did not admit that he was a thief and had stolen the crofter's money. But while sitting in the carriage, he was thinking that now I am sitting in the trap and I will never get out of it. The next morning, the ironmaster and his daughter were discussing the future of the Rattrap seller, the tramp, who the ironmaster had believed to be his old regimental comrade, and they were thinking about giving him some flesh on his bones and to find another way for him to make money. But when the guest had bathed and was shaved off his beard, and he came in wearing starch collared suit, the ironmaster was not at all pleased. But now the ironmaster was not pleased but irritated also. Now, why was he irritated? Because he had realized his mistake. What was the mistake of the ironmaster? That he had thought the peddler, the ragamuffin, to be his old friend, but he was not his friend. The guest was not his friend. The ironmaster wanted to call in the sheriff. The sheriff means he wanted to call in the police. But the tramp took a step forward and struck the table with his fist. And he started giving that old lecture of his to the ironmaster, the world being a rat trap and everything. And he said, "Now I'm going to tell you, Mr. Ironmaster, how things are. This whole world is nothing but a big rat trap." So these words are being repeated, that this is the theme of the chapter also, and he says that all the good things that are in the world that are offered to you are nothing but cheese rings and bits of oak, like baits. They are set out to drag a poor fellow into trouble. And if the sheriff comes now and locks me up for this, then you, Mr. Ironmaster, must remember that a day may come when you yourself may want to get a big piece of pork, and then you will get caught in the trap forever. So he says that today he was in the rat trap, but one day might come when the ironmaster will also be tempted by a big bait or a big piece of pork and or any other bait, and he will also be trapped in the rat trap just like the rat trap seller himself. To this lecture of the rat trap seller, the tramp, the ironmaster began to laugh. He did not give any weightage to his words, but he laughed his words off. He said, "That was not so badly said, my good fellow. Perhaps we should let the sheriff alone." So he dropped the idea of calling the police on Christmas Eve. But now get out of here as fast as you can. But just as the man was about to open the door to go, the ironmaster's daughter stopped him. Now, why did the ironmaster's daughter try to intervene to stop the peddler from going away? The ironmaster was as shocked because she insisted that they had themselves invited him for Christmas Eve. So the reason that she gave for stopping the man from having him in their house was, she said that they had invited the man themselves for Christmas Eve and they should not let him go. To which the ironmaster had to give up his efforts. The stranger did not cause any trouble because he did nothing but sleep. So the whole day long, the rat trap seller, did not do anything but he laid on the couch and just slept the whole day long. The whole forenoon he lay on the sofa in one of the guest rooms and slept at one stretch. So maybe it was the fatigue of the years that he was trying to shed off by laying on the sofa and sleeping the whole day long. At noon, they woke him up, means he had to be aroused, he had to be woken up so that he could have his share of good Christmas fare. But after that, he slept again. So he did nothing but slept the whole day long. It seemed as though for many years he had not been able to sleep as quietly and safely as here at Ramjo. In the evening, when the Christmas tree was lighted, they woke him up again, and he stood for a while in the drawing room, blinking because of the light, as though the candle light hurt him because of his long stretch of sleep. But after that, he disappeared again. 2 hours later, he disappeared because of his sleep, because he went to sleep again. 2 hours later, he was aroused once more, he was wakened up once more, and then he had to go down into the dining room and eat the Christmas fish and porridge along with other members of the family. After the dinner, he went to each member present and said thank you to everyone. The young girl gave him her father's suit that he was wearing as a Christmas present from her father's side, and along with it, she also gave him an invitation to come to their home to the next Christmas also. On the day of the Christmas next morning, the ironmaster and his daughter got up in good season to go to the early Christmas service. But their guest was still asleep. Their guest means the Rattrap seller. The vagabond was still sleeping and they did not disturb him. At church, they learned that one of the old crofters of the ironworks had been robbed by a man who went around selling rat traps. And this was the time when the ironmaster and his daughter learned that this was the same man who was present in their house. When they came home, they learned that the fellow had gone. When they both, the father and the daughter, reached home, they came to know that the tramp, the vagabond, had left. And he had left behind a little package which Miss Wilkinson was to be kind enough to accept as a Christmas present. So behind him, he had not taken along with anything, but behind him, he had left a Christmas present for Miss Edla Wilkinson. The young girl opened the package, which was so badly done up that the contents came into view at once. She gave a little cry of joy. She found a small rat trap. Why was she happy when she saw the gift? Why did she give a little cry of joy? Because she felt that the man was not a thief after all, and her judgment was not wrong. She found a small rat trap. Inside the gift, a rat trap was packed very badly, and in the rat trap lay three wrinkled 10 kroner notes. Along with the three wrinkled 10 kroner notes, there was a letter also for Miss Edla Wilkinson, and in the letter, these words were written. He had written that honored and noble miss, since you have been so nice to me all day long, as if I was a captain, I want to be nice to you in return, as if I was a real captain, for I do not want you to be embarrassed at this Christmas season by a thief. But you can give the money back to the old man on the roadside who has the money pouch hanging on the window frame as a bait for poor wanderers. The rat trap is a Christmas present from a rat. Here he is comparing himself to a rat who would have been caught in this world's rat trap forever if he had been not been raised to the captain, to the level of a captain by Miss Edla Wilkinson, because in that way he got power to clear himself. Written with friendship and high regard, Captain Wonstell. So this is the most important question of the chapter, that why did the peddler sign himself as Captain Wonstell, as he has not been given any name in the full chapter, but he signed the letter as Captain Wonstell. So he signed the letter as Captain Wonstell because he was treated by Miss Edna as a real captain, and he did not want the girl to be embarrassed by him as he was really a thief. So he raised himself to the level of a captain, as he did not want the girl to be embarrassed because of his friendship with him. So the theme of the story is that most human beings are prone to fall into the trap of material benefit. However, every human being has an essential goodness that can be awakened through understanding and love. So, this is the theme of the story, that the essential goodness inside a human being can be awakened through understanding and love, as the human being Edla Wilmanson awakened the goodness inside the peddler. A human being has the tendency to redeem himself from dishonest ways. The theme is developed with the help of the metaphor of the rat trap. The peddler of the rat trap calls the world a big rat trap. The material benefits like riches and joys, shelter and food, heat and clothing are temptations that allure a person to fall into the rat trap of the world, exactly as the bait of cheese and pork attract a rat to fall into the rat trap. Once someone takes the bait, the world closes in on him and everything is lost. The peddler is tempted by the 30 kroners of the old crofter. He steals the money and now he is afraid of being caught and moves through the woods. It is the kind, sympathetic, loving, and generous treatment given by Edla Wilmanson that helps him get himself free from the rat trap of the world. So that's the story. I hope you like the video.